Hi there, Jared here. Welcome to Relitigated, the show where five friends who are absolutely not lawyers attempt to retry a real Supreme Court case. This is episode 5, United States v. 95 barrels, more or less, alleged apple cider vinegar, Douglas Packing Company, Claimant. Yes, that is the full title of the case. 2 quick notes before we get started. First, as always, we try our best to represent the facts and decisions in the case as accurately as possible, but we're not lawyers, and nothing in this episode should be taken as legal advice. Second, if you enjoy the podcast, please support us by subscribing, rating, leaving us a comment, and telling your friends. We could really use the help in getting the word out. If you like, you can also find us on YouTube and Instagram. Our handle is Relitigated Podcast. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Chris fearing for his life and his job.
Honestly, nothing scares me anymore at this point. I'm just living my life. That's where we're at.
I can't think of a better way to start the show. Hi there, welcome to the Relitigated Podcast. I'm your host, Jarrett. I'm joined by my co-host, Nikki. Say hi, Nikki.
Hello.
We also have with us 3 friends who will be role-playing as our justices. We've got our first Associate Justice, Adam. What's up, Adam?
I am the law.
Next, we have Associate Justice Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hi, and I just wanted to confer. Our Chief Justice did mention cookies, and I'm expecting them to be delivered.
Oh, yeah, I did hear the word cookies. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Chief Justice, what's up, Sarah?
What's up? Sorry, guys. Cookies are gone. I have eaten them.
No
That's
more
all there
treats.
is to it. No treats. Unless we all agree on whatever this case is.
It's got to be
No
illegal.
treats.
Eating all the cookies.
This is unjust.
It's
No, Adam, what did you
absolutely not
say?
just at the very least, but probably illegal as well.
Yes.
We are
Unjust.
the law. Or
Collectively.
something.
All right. If you're new to the show, here's how this works. Nikki and I have selected a real Supreme Court case, and our justices do not know what case we have selected. Isn't that right, Supreme Court justices?
Every
Indeed.
day is a new adventure.
Clueless. We are clueless.
Nikki's going to go ahead and introduce the case to us and walk us through the facts of the case so that we can all get familiar with the details. The justices are free to ask factual questions during this time, and we'll answer them as best as we can with the facts that we have. Next, we're going to move into oral arguments where Nikki will roleplay as the petitioner and I will roleplay as the respondent. We each get 7 minutes to make our case, during which the justices are free to interrupt us and ask us any probing questions that they like. When the arguments are over, the justices will deliberate and deliver their own opinions. The final rulings do not need to be unanimous. Majority opinion will win. Even if 2 or more justices agree in principle, they can disagree as to why. Once we've had our fun and our mock hearing, Nikki and I will reveal what the Supreme Court actually decided and talk about how we feel about the actual results and why this case even matters. Sound good to everybody?
Sounds amazing.
Strap me in.
All right, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Let me turn it over to Nikki for the facts of the case.
All right. Hello, everybody. As we sit here recording, it is the fall, so the leaves are changing. All of the coolest people are born around this time of year. And because apples are now in season, we now have treats like apple cider, which I am currently drinking, apple cider donuts, and the United States versus 95 barrels, more or less, alleged apple cider vinegar, Douglas Packing Company, Claimant. That is our case for today.
What?
I'm so excited
Amazing.
for this one. I've been waiting for a case like this.
It's about time those barrels of apple cider vinegar face justice.
Oh,
And,
let's get them.
Yes, and I'm sitting here with my little bit of apple cider, just enjoying the seasonality. It's great.
I do have apple cider.
I've got cider in the
Oh,
fridge,
yeah.
and I didn't come prepared. If only I'd known.
Yeah.
Tisk,
Oh,
tisk.
rough.
What a shame.
That's fine.
So, in a warehouse in Ohio sits approximately 95 barrels of what is labeled apple cider vinegar. But is it really? The Douglas Packing Company believes that it is, but according to the United States government, no, it is not. The problem stems first from how the apple cider vinegar was made and then from how it was labeled. At issue are the following two statements. Douglas Packing Company, Excelsior brand apple cider vinegar, made from selected apples, reduced to 4%, Rochester, New York, and guaranteed to comply with all pure food laws, Douglas Packing Company, Rochester, New York. When the suit was first brought by the federal government, they alleged that under the Food and Drugs Act, the product was adulterated and misbranded. They argued that the apple cider vinegar was not made from real apple cider and so was manufactured in an alternative manner. Specifically, they explained that apple cider is a specific substance according to statute made from pressing fresh apples. In contrast, the apple cider used to make the supposed apple cider vinegar was created by flowing water through dehydrated apples. As a part of the dehydration process, a small amount of sulfur fumes are used to prevent rot, fermentation, and discoloration. During rehydration, barium carbonate is added to the resulting liquid to remove sulfur dioxide. After the liquid is generated, the exact same alcoholic and fermentation process is used with the same equipment to produce the vinegar in the final product as any other apple cider vinegar. In the view of the federal government, the liquid produced from dehydrated apples was not apple cider, and so the product was adulterated, meaning it was a lower quality product due to additives. Additionally, since the product was not, in the eyes of the government, real apple cider vinegar, then labeling the barrels as containing apple cider vinegar was a misbranding and in violation of the Food and Drugs Act. For their part, the Douglas Packing Company agreed with the facts as presented by the government. They acknowledged that the liquid used in their process was the result of pressing rehydrated apples instead of fresh apples, but objected to the accusation that the liquid should not be considered apple cider, and the resulting vinegar, therefore, couldn't be apple cider vinegar. Since apples are a seasonal fruit, with the season lasting only between September 25th and December 15th, it's not possible that apple cider vinegar always be made from first pressing fresh apples. Chemical analysis indicated that the liquids produced from both manufacturing processes were similar. The vinegar was also similar in taste and composition, except the vinegar from evaporated apples had traces of barium. The case was heard without a jury, based on the pleadings and an agreed statement of facts. Samples of the cider and the vinegar from both fresh and evaporated apples were provided to the judge. According to this judge, there were slight differences in appearance and taste, but all looked and tasted like cider or like vinegar. The court held that the charge of adulteration was not sustained, but the vinegar was misbranded. The company appealed, and the judgment was reversed by the Circuit Court of Appeals. And so we've escalated it again, and now the question before our esteemed justices is, was the vinegar misbranded?
Wow.
Well, I mean, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it might just still be apple cider vinegar. I don't know. Okay.
Right? Deep vinegar lore today on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Deep vinegar. Wait, I'm not going to use the word. What's the synonym? Yeah, canon. I'm gonna say canon. Apple cider vinegar canon. This is a pivotal case, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like this is the cornerstone of Oreos being made of like petroleum byproducts, like 100 years later. This feels to me like a turn of the century case, and it feels like Upton Sinclair's The Jungle was not interpreted as the warning that it was meant to be.
But somehow Oreos are still vegan. So
I just, knowing where we are today in our current history, I feel like I know where this case is going to go. But anyway, I'm going to clamp it there.
I'm ready for it. Okay. Well, I guess in true court fashion, you're both going to argue the different sides of this, huh? Who's
Mhm.
defending this apple cider?
Yeah, this is the part where Sarah breaks the pool cue over her knee and throws it in front of both of you guys, right?
Yeah.
So Nikki will be the petitioner, which is the United States government. They are appealing the previous decision that the lower courts had said that it's not adulterated and it's not misbranded. And I will be representing the Douglas Packing Company, arguing that that is true, that it is not misbranded and it is not adulterated.
Good luck.
As the petitioner, Nikki will be going first. I have 7 minutes queued up, and your timer will start when you begin.
Okay. Esteemed justices, this case is the simple enforcement of a law that Congress put into place under its powers to ensure honesty in advertising products that people are supposed to eat or otherwise put into their bodies. So, the Food and Drugs Act defines food as all articles used for food, drink, confectionery, or condiment by man or other animals, whether simple, mixed, or compound. This clearly includes apple cider and apple cider vinegar. According to this act, a food is misbranded if its packaging or label has false or misleading information. This act also defines mislabeling. So, mislabeling occurs if an imitation or different product is sold under the distinctive name of another food, if a product is labeled or branded to deceive or mislead the purchaser, or if the product's packaging or label makes any statement about its ingredients that is false or misleading in any way. So, in consideration of this instance, the Douglas Packing Company sells the products they have labeled as apple cider and apple cider vinegar made from selected apples. Apple cider vinegar is the fermentation of the juice of apples, and everyone agrees that the fermented product from fresh apples indeed gets to be called apple cider vinegar. Under the law, when a person or company creates and sells food, they need to be honest about the food in its labeling and packaging so that the consumer knows what they are buying and eating. So deception can occur not only through blatantly false information, but also through omission or incomplete information, through indirect language, or through ambiguity. The law is designed to prevent this such deception, so straightforward, honest labeling will not deceive consumers and will comply with the law. This substance was made from dried and reconstituted apples. It's simply not the same as that made from fresh, non-dehydrated apples. So the water that is removed from apples during dehydration was part of the juice that would have made the cider and the vinegar. This juice was not replaced. Added water is not a constituent part of the apples. Therefore, what they then extract from the dried apples, so they fill up the vat with the dried apples, they pour some water in, they smush it, it's different from the pressed juice of apples. If a product being sold is not identical to what the brand says it is misbranded. So this product made from dried apples is not the product described in the label, apple cider vinegar made from selected apples. The words apple cider vinegar suggest the product inside to be the vinegar made from apple cider, the juice of apples. However, the product in question, which is made from dehydrating, then adding water, it's not the same thing. The labeling did not disclose this difference in any way. Instead, it suggests the products to be made from fresh apples. The words made from selected apples connotes that the apples were sort of chosen with some sort of regard for using them to make cider vinegar, being picked for freshness, for suitability. There's no indication that the selection involves dried out apples or that the juice is substituted with water. Altogether, this is a misrepresentation of the product being sold. Therefore, the product that this company is selling has been misbranded and violates the Food and Drug Act. I will also point out they're adding chemicals. So they're adding barium, they're adding sulfur and then barium, and there's leaving traces of that in the product. That's not a constituent part of apples, of apple juice that's squeezed out of fresh apples. They're just adding stuff and making it different. It's not the same product. It is misbranded and adulterated. And I think at this point, I will take questions.
So, I don't know a whole lot about dehydrating and rehydrating fruit, or the law, for that matter. But I just would like to ask, so there's no way to like rehydrate an apple and get juice from that? I guess not. It'd just be water with apple essence.
Yeah, they're drying out apples, and then they put a bunch of dried apples in the container. They pour water through, they press it, and then what comes out, that's what they're using. They're processing and selling as apple cider vinegar.
When you dry out a fruit, like you evaporate the water out, but like you're not sublimating out like the apple essence, right? Like the water all evaporates.
Yeah, are we destroying apple molecules?
And that's like when you make the apple molecules are extremely delicate, have to be handled with care. Otherwise, what do you have on the other side, honey? Okay, so is the problem just that they're not calling it the right thing? Like, what if they called it like, I don't know, fruit by the foot cider vinegar? Would that be kosher?
So the issue is that the potential consumer, in looking at the packaging, is not being informed that there's some apples, that are made this way, fresh apples, versus, we're drying it out and then we're pouring water and we're kind of, adding some chemicals and making it that way. Honestly, there's no difference in the labeling.
This is the exact kind of weasel words I'm accustomed to as a modern consumer. Like the selected apples, like, yeah, we selected the really dry ones.
They were super dry. It was like the desert. I mean, it sounds like the apple cider vinegar is a dupe, and it probably tastes pretty shitty anyways compared to the
How does it
fresh
taste?
Squeezed apples anyways. Yeah. So I would like to request kind of a quick aside, maybe for the next case where it involves food or food of sort, that you send us justices samples so that we can test and determine, just to help inform our decisions a little bit better.
Send me that bootleg apple cider vinegar, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Nikki. I have no further questions. Adam, Chris?
I do want to know how it tasted. Was it good?
I mean, apple cider vinegar is not great. I don't know.
It's really good base for like salad dressings. I do use it in that way quite a bit.
It's very good for you, unless it's made from fruit by the foot.
Unless it has barium in it. Okay.
That's true.
Extremely radioactive. Yeah, we don't like that.
That is time. If there's one more question, I'll allow it, but we are at time.
No.
Yeah, really just more stray observations, so I think we could move on.
Yeah, same. Yep.
Yeah, we're just pontificating at this point, so.
As is your want.
I'm the one with the powdered wig up here, buddy.
Nikki, if you can put 7 minutes on the clock for me, I will rebut.
Defend your botched cider.
Rebut.
Tell me how you really feel.
All right. It'll start when you do.
Okay, here we go. Miss Chief Justice, and may it please the court, 95 barrels of our company's finest apple cider vinegar is currently sitting in a warehouse seized by the government, not because of what is inside of the barrels, but because of what is written on them. Frankly, this is absurd. This whole thing is absurd. Here's what's actually written on the barrels. Quote, Douglas Packing Company, Excelsior brand apple cider vinegar made from selected apples reduced to 4% Rochester, New York. Allow us to go through this part by part. First, we have Douglas Packing Company. That's us. We're the Douglas Packing Company. No misbranding there.
Checks out.
Second, Excelsior brand. Yep, that's the name of our brand. No lies told there. Third, apple cider vinegar. This seems to be the sticking point. Did we use apple cider to make our vinegar? We've been through this in the lower courts already, but allow me to reiterate. Our vinegar made from evaporated apples looks the same, tastes the same, smells the same as vinegar from regular apples. Chemically, it's almost identical. It reacts the same and can be used the same way for the same exact things. What more does something need to do to be apple cider vinegar? Is apple juice made from concentrate not still apple juice? Of course it is. Slightly different process, sure, but the result is the same to the taste buds of children across the country.
That's a good one.
So what do we have left? Selected apples is a true statement. We don't accept just anyone's apples. We use our own and only the ones that we select. That just leaves Rochester, New York, which is kind of just where we're located, so no foul play there.
Wait, 4%.
That's the chemical makeup of the vinegar, which is part of the apple cider vinegar.
Dubious. Okay.
I'm having a hard time finding the misbranding, justices. We're producing apple cider vinegar that's the same result as any other apple cider vinegar, so what's the big deal? I'll tell you what the big deal is. A federal government that's injecting its writhing tentacles into every facet of the lives of the American people and their businesses. That's the real problem here.
Oh, God.
The government seeks to play the role of noble servant looking out for the average Joe, but their overreach is really starting to show here. It's one thing to make sure that our medicines are real and that our food is pure. That's all well and good. But we should be wary of civil servants who are so fervent in their policing that they would make a literal federal case over a quibble of language. Language, it should be pointed out, sure seems accurate to us. What's next? How far is the federal government to be allowed to creep into our lives? This is an opportunity for the court to stop it here and now. If we don't, we're telling the bureaucrats that we're okay with them rifling through our cabinets, telling us what we can and cannot put into our bodies, what is and is not real according to their tables and their schedules. Arrest this nightmare here. Call a barrel of vinegar a barrel of vinegar. Thank you. I yield my remaining time to questions.
Really pounded the table, huh?
Wait, you can arrest a nightmare? Now, admittedly, I'm not real schooled in the law, but that's compelling.
You've seen Ghostbusters.
That's true. Yeah. That was a very impassioned libertarian screed toward the end there, and don't get me wrong, it was compelling. But I have a question. What would be an example of a mislabeling, in your opinion? Like, what words would have to change, and in what way for that to not be okay, to not have the seal of approval to leave the warehouse?
If we didn't put apple cider vinegar in the barrels.
Yeah, when you put it that way, all right. All right,
Your
can
apple
I taste
cider
it?
vinegar has barium in it. I feel. Do you not feel like you should disclose to your faithful and loving consumers the exact ingredients that are in your product? I don't know. I feel like if I was consuming apple cider vinegar that had barium in it, I would maybe like to know. A quick Google search tells me that barium is typically used in oil drilling and X-rays.
Good to know.
So,
Which may or may not have been invented at the time of this case.
yeah, I don't know.
Plenty of chemicals that sound nasty and terrible are just a standard part of the organic chemistry of what we consume and eat all day. I mean, you can drink water or you can drink dihydrogen monoxide. Everything's a chemical.
Don't use your big
That's-
words with me.
But my point being that the result is chemically the same. Like, we don't have a word for apple cider vinegar made in this particular way. Like, we make it one of two ways depending on whether or not the apples are in season. When they're in season, we make them fresh. But when they're not in season, then what do you go without your apple cider vinegar? No, we found a way to make apple cider vinegar from dehydrated
so
apples.
Seems like you have two tiers of products here.
Right, they're
but-
two distinct products sold under the same label.
They are the same product at the end, made by two different processes. It would be like, you can make a cookie one way.
Yes, please.
And you can go into a store and buy a cookie made in another place. Are we
Sounds good too.
to start kicking down the doors of kitchens everywhere and measuring exactly how much butter and sugar goes into it? No, they all have their own slightly different bespoke recipes, but anybody who looks at it says, like, yeah, that's a cookie. And that looks like apple cider vinegar to me. So what's the problem?
I still think we would need a taste test to determine, but I don't think that's going to happen here today. Okay.
If I made vinegar from wine, and then I also made a batch of vinegar from a slurry of rehydrated raisins, could I market those under the same label?
Does your slurry of from rehydrated raisins contain chemically the same stuff that's in wine?
Some respect on my raisin slurry. I mean, mostly, right?
Does it have the same alcohol contents? Does it,
Grapes a raisin and raisin a grape, right? Like, it's all the same. What do you call a dried apple? Does that have a name?
Well, wine and the liquid that just gets pressed out of a grape or a raisin are not. Wine goes through an additional process. So if you turned your slurry, if you fermented it and turned it into wine and then used that wine, then I say no harm, no foul. Also, I believe my time is up.
Well, I'm just way more
you're
confused.
done, buddy.
I have no clarifying questions, but I do have an opinion.
Yeah,
Wow.
let's go.
All right, let's get.
I'm intrigued.
Let's get right into deliberation. Then.
And with that, we're ready for the next part.
I am totally ready for you to agree with me. Let's do it.
Confident.
I think there's no mislabeling, but I think the label is missing things. If that's the only thing on the label, then it is not accurate. Like it's not the complete truth.
You know what, Chris? I think I might be on a similar wavelength. I feel like, yeah, sure, okay, it's apple cider vinegar. Maybe a less good version of apple cider vinegar. Again, we can't taste it. We don't know. But I don't know. I feel like we should be disclosing the ingredients, disclosing that the main ingredient in this particular batch, all 95 barrels, more or less, are dehydrated apples, not just apples. Let the consumer decide if they would rather take the dehydrated apple cider vinegar or the fresh apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, states' rights.
Yeah, well.
I am
That
feverish.
depends.
Yeah. 100% a states' rights issue.
But I mean, kind of. I think that we're missing like the whole truth on the label, and it's not necessarily mislabeled, but it is missing information. According to the law at this time, I have no freaking clue, but according to common sense, yeah, it's missing information.
Well, I'm curious. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this question, but like, can you consider, like, if you're omitting ingredients or omitting information on the label, is that not mislabeling something? It's like the difference between like lying and omitting information. Like,
Right.
I don't know. It's like,
That's actually an
maybe you're
interesting,
not lying,
right?
but it doesn't really look good either way.
Like,
so
by that logic, you can't call an Oreo. You have to call it like a vaguely chocolate flavored wafer full of palm oil.
Microplastics, yeah. And palm oil. So do we need to determine what actually constitutes something as being mislabeled again? Hold on.
I'm asking the internet what you call a dried apple, and the consensus is that you call it dried apples.
Oh,
Which I just
Did
think
you try
isn't
asking
fair, right?
Reddit?
Like
we're learning.
grapes become raisins, plums become prunes. I've run out of examples, but
What about dates?
That's it.
I think dates are just dates. I'm not sure you can eat a date not dried. Oh boy, now I'm way more confused than when I started. Anyway,
I'm
This is
also
going to be
very
a really good
confused.
YouTube rabbit hole.
just a label thing? Like, do we just want to call it like fruit by the foot vinegar and we're good? No, that's probably copywritten. That's a trademark for sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was going to say processed versus fresh versus organic, whatever that means. These weird descriptors that we have in modern food are kind of useless. The only thing that's really useful is the list of ingredients. Dehydrated apples are different from apples. Therefore, that's an ingredient that needs to be made aware. But there's no ingredients list in the label. So
Which seems silly. Which makes me think that this case was from like 1890.
17 dickety
Yes.
4.
I'm having flashbacks. Yes.
Okay. So I think we just need to determine if omitting the list of ingredients and all the chemicals and all that stuff, is that actually mislabeling? So, I don't know. I kind of feel like it could be mislabeled.
Well,
like,
it's not like they were marketing the original like fresh apple cider vinegar, right? I'm really torn on this one.
Guys, this might be the case that actually maybe causes the domino effect of why we have organic and non-organic.
Those very processed. Useless.
Yeah.
Useless weird labels.
Yeah, this feels historic.
I'm going to radically pivot here. How did the cops first obtain the evidence to find the 95 barrels of apple cider vinegar? Was this whole thing a single search and seizure?
Do you want to know who snitched?
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up as a question, and we don't know. It's just it's just like, hey, you've got a bunch of barrels of stuff, and we think that it's wrong,
right? Like some particularly sophisticated cop like sniffed it. He's like, I say, this smells like it was made from dried apples. That's how he talks.
It feels like the number one competitor of the Douglas Packing Company, like had an op in there and saw that they were using dehydrated apples, and they like filed a lawsuit to be like, yeah, my competitor's cheating. Use dehydrated apples. It's not real. I feel like the apple cider vinegar is real with dehydrated apples, but I feel like it's just like a less quality version. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to use company names here. You can edit this out, but it's like the Great Value Walmart brand of apple cider vinegar.
Okay, so I was curious about this now as well.
Great advertising.
You can buy a jug of powdered apple to make reconstituted cider, like in your fallout shelter, presumably.
So we've gone all the way the other way. We're giving all the power to the people. Like, yeah, you just want to make your own crappy apple cider? Here's a bunch of powder.
The government's like, we are done regulating this.
You can also buy powdered apple cider vinegar. So you can buy your apple powder, you can buy your cider powder, you can buy your vinegar powder, and you can titrate them to your precise specification. We've gotten way off track here.
Oh no. Are we going to have to agree with Jarrett?
I have tried the powdered apple cider drink in the past.
Hold on, Nikki. Sarah was saying something.
Oh, come on.
I just rubbing the bridge of my nose, like, are we gonna have to agree with Jarrett?
I hate this part.
Every fiber of my being says no. Maybe I should listen to those fibers.
Yeah, whichever side you're representing is the heel side. Yeah.
Nobody says you have to listen to any fibers.
What fibers said anything?
Fun fact, there's no fiber in this apple cider vinegar.
Perfect.
Oh. Yeah, we wouldn't need to put that on the label. So that's great.
Yep. All the mash gets fed to horses, presumably.
Ponies.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to get back. We got to get back on track
Yeah,
here.
let's refocus here.
Illegal search and seizure. We throw the whole thing out, right? Easy peasy. I love that move. No?
Won't save you this time.
All right.
Mistrial.
Yes.
Let's set some precedent, I guess. So
How do we apply Porque no los dos to this?
no, we can't. There's no one to go to. First of all, we're going to imprison someone over this one. Like making dodgy apple cider is a commercial crime, maybe a civil thing, but prison. And also
95 barrels.
That's why I want to know about the nature of the search and seizure, so we can decide if we're going to throw the police in jail. That's the whole foundation of the no que por los dos, porque no los dos doctrine.
Can we even use the 95 barrels as evidence? Was there
Only
a warrant?
93 of them. 2 of them were drank inexplicably. So
okay, back on track.
We're all kind of coalescing around this idea that like the only real this is a technical crime. This is a technicality, and the technicality is that they just didn't label the dang barrel right, and we just got to come up with a name for dried apples, and we're done here.
It's just Schrodinger's label for sure.
How so?
Is it mislabeled or is it not labeled?
I think. Listen,
Ooh,
okay,
interesting,
I'm
interesting.
coming to a conclusion at this point. I think that in order to fix this mess, Jarrett and the rest of the Douglas Packing Company need to take a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra money and slap some freaking labels on those 95 barrels.
Right? Maybe hire a marketing
I don't think
company.
it- I don't
some
think it-
focus testing.
Yeah,
What do we call this
you
stuff?
don't even have to outsource. Just
We're going to call it
find a
apple
guy.
ring vinegar. Apple ring vinegar. We're done here.
Respectfully, Chief Justice, as your lowly clerk, I just must ask, what is the product called that is chemically equivalent to apple cider vinegar?
Imitation apple cider vinegar. Ooh,
Not
processed.
quite as fresh apple cider vinegar.
Processed.
As your lowly clerk who's been paid off by the Douglas Packing Company.
Yeah, I'm like,
Hey, can you
so
do
the
that?
the question before the court is this stuff misbranded or not?
Hold on.
I'm really, guys, this is a good one again. Really torn on this one.
Okay, let's just read the definition of misbranded once again, right? Articles of food or articles which enter into the composition of food, the package or label of which shall bear any statement, design, or device regarding such article or the ingredients or substances contained therein, which shall be false or misleading in any particular. So, again, it's like, is omitting the information misleading?
Right?
I think so. I think it is.
I would
Because-
also direct your attention to the second slide.
Wait, I'm on the second slide.
Does every
Oh,
product
sorry.
then need
Yeah,
to like
there's-
list all of its constituent ingredients right on the front of the package?
I mean, it could be on the back of the package.
Fair. So are we really missing just a little asterisk on these barrels that says contains bromide or barium? What is it? Barium?
Barium. And something else.
Sulfides?
What was the
maybe?
other thing? Clerks?
So it was okay. So first they used
Pure natural lead.
While she pulls it up, my understanding is they added
So they first added
sulfur
sulfur
to
fumes,
prevent rot.
Oh,
and
And then
then
later to get the sulfur out, they added
they did the barium.
barium.
so preservatives. I mean,
Yes. So as part of this, they need to disclose the preservatives. I really think actually Porque no los dos might come in handy here.
I think so too.
I was just thinking that when you said that. I was like, I think it's both. I
Yeah.
do.
All right, we said it enough that we have. If you've not listened to previous episodes, the Sarah Court has created a doctrine of porque no los dos, where if the police illegally search and seize your property to use against you in court, then you go free, and the court gets to punish the police. I am now very interested to
Yeah,
understand
how does
that
this,
applies.
how does
So
this
go
apply
ahead.
to
Tell me
95 barrels of vinegar?
Well,
I think we need to expand Porque no los
yes.
dos to
Yes.
include this very specific use case.
I think
of
I
apple cider
finally found an activist judge.
He's determined to put these barrels of cider in jail. He'll find any way to
Lock
do it.
them up.
Lock them up.
Yes.
Ugh.
No, I do think that, all kidding aside, the barrels are not technically mislabeled, but they are missing information. So we're not in the business of creating laws. So I don't know if a law exists or not that enforces the enforces or has the FDA enforce.
But this is the law.
ingredients.
This is the law. This is the law. Your job is to interpret it.
We are
Right.
the law.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
y'all
did you
are
not
the
hear me?
law.
Not forget.
Yeah. Yes, but like we're not in the business of creating laws, right? We're just
That's
We
what
are
make us
now.
activist
You're
judges. That's right.
reading the law that exists and then deciding how or whether it applies in this case or not.
So I'm
Right.
thinking this whole avenue of like it's missing information on the label is somewhat of a dangerous slippery slope, because then you have to don't you then have to then describe every product with a very like plain description of exactly what it is. Like that's like Conehead language, like from the movie Coneheads, like Eggo waffles become like wafered nutrient discs made from wheat. Like that's like what's the limit to what a complete labeling is? Is it just having an ingredients list? Maybe that's the solve. Maybe we just need an ingredient list, and you have to be explicit about the nature of the fruit and its hydration or lack thereof.
I think we definitely do.
Did we just invent nutrition labels, guys?
I think
we
we
might have.
did. I think we might have gotten there.
Great
We'll have
work,
to see.
everybody. Great work.
So now comes
Nice.
the question of whose side are we on, right? 'Cause
Clearly not
it's
Jared's.
like- yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're going with the labels need to change.
Yeah.
And so therefore they are mislabeled.
I would say that they are. Yeah, I would agree. I would say that they're misbranded.
And
I
as
think
punishment, you're
in
going to have to
this-
drink all 95 barrels of cider, mister. Think about what you've done.
Good luck with that.
No
Yeah,
man
good luck,
can drink
buddy.
95 barrels of alleged apple cider vinegar.
Especially when it's full of
The
barium. It's got
dubious.
like 170% of your daily barium intake.
You're gonna be walking around like glow in the dark.
I presume barium glows. That
these-
sounds right.
This
Also
feels
not
right.
scientists.
55. 50.
No.
Technically, I do have a master's in science, but not in chemistry though. Man, I don't know. Yeah, no, I think I'm there. I think mislabeled because they are missing information that qualifies as being mislabeled.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm settling.
Yeah, I agree. I think my final verdict here is that these are mislabeled because there is key information omitted from. I mean, to be fair, there's no information about what is in this apple cider vinegar besides the fact that it's apple cider vinegar. Like, you could have put asbestos in there for all we know and just lied. Like, so yeah, I think that this is misbranded. And I think the Douglas Packing Company should hire a guy to put some ingredient labels on all 95 barrels of this dubious product.
Yeah, maybe like illustrate like a nice little label, like with a mascot or something.
Ooh.
You know, while we're in there.
And then they should drink all 95 barrels.
And
Just
think
for
about
our
what they've
entertainment.
done.
Yeah.
They're going to have a tummy ache for sure when this is over. So we still have not answered this really important, dare I say, pivotal, foundational legal question of what do we add to the label to differentiate this from what we're going to presumably refer to as quote unquote normal apple cider vinegar?
I'll let the lower
Is that our
courts
job?
decide that.
I was gonna say, is that a job? I would just say, you know what?
It might just be me. I might just be singularly fascinated by this question and lack of resolution. But all right. I'll work on this in my own time.
Yeah, Adam, I charge you with a side project. Come to us next
Ooh.
episode with your full fleshed out example of an ingredients list.
May I
Maybe some
present it
art.
in diorama form?
I'll allow it. in my
Thank you,
court.
Chief Justice.
4D only.
You are as
You can make
wise as you are merciful.
I do my best. Okay, Nikki, Jarrett, I think our conclusions here are clear.
Indeed.
That's a unanimous decision for the government.
Yeah, and just to be safe, we're going to throw all the cops who raided the warehouse in jail.
And like we decided at the beginning of this
Just
recording,
in case.
because this has been a unanimous decision, everybody gets cookies.
Yay!
hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh man, sometimes
Finally.
it pays to be
Bribery
unanimous.
works.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I could have gone with apple cider donuts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are 2 on the counter right now.
Adulterated apple cider donuts.
Yeah, I want the sketchy stuff.
I feel like I need to turn this over to Nikki because Rabbit Hole does not begin to describe the places and the depths to which Nikki has gone in the past 48 hours, thinking about all the facets of apple cider vinegar. We got apple cider donuts a
Yep.
couple of days ago, just
Important.
because for research purposes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course,
definitely.
as you do.
Yeah.
So
no, it's
I'm
very
just
important.
gonna turn it over. The rest of this episode is Nikki gets to just go off.
No.
Nice.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah. So, all right, unanimous decision. I honestly thought that you guys were gonna go with Jarrett's argument because he was just so passionate about government.
It was very
overreach.
good. Yeah.
I did too, but then I sort of realized that I think everyone has decided that whatever I argue for is wrong.
Well, you know, it's
I
been
think
wrong.
we gave you a fair shot.
I think that's
there.
a little unfair, but all right.
Sometimes they ruled in your favor, sir.
You may have been typecast as a villain by all of us
Yeah.
personally.
But I'm sorry. Please continue.
Okay. All right. So, in the real case of U.S. versus 95 barrels of apple cider vinegar alleged, the Supreme Court reversed the Circuit Court of Appeals and found that the product had been misbranded.
Woo!
Oh, nice.
So, and it was unanimous decision.
Oh, wow.
High
There were no
five.
dissents.
I
9
was
for
not
9.
thinking that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No
I
kidding.
was not thinking that we would actually be.
We
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
we should change careers. I'm feeling it.
So basically, they were like, the vinegar that's made from dried apples, it's not the same thing. The dehydration removed about 80% of the water content. And so according to them, that was in excess of 2/3 of the total of the constituent elements of the apple. So basically, they had an issue with the juice being removed. And normally that juice would have been made if the apples had been used in their natural state, but instead they took that out and then put a different thing in it, which was water. So they decided that the substance extracted from the dried apples is different from the pressed out juice of apples.
That's actually a really interesting and smart argument, I think, right? Like if you evaporated more than 2/3 of it out into the air, like it's not the same thing anymore. That's compelling.
The law is so silly.
So they go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like I mean, it's just less of it. It's the same thing. It's just there's just less.
So if I can somehow manage to lose 2/3 of my body weight by hook or crook,
You're still Adam.
no, I think I get to legally change my name. I think that's what this says.
I mean, I think you can always legally change your name. You just have to go through the process.
Yeah, if
That's
you
true.
lost 2/3 of yourself, you would not be apple cider vinegar.
You know
No,
what?
absolutely
That's
not.
very true. That's
Yeah.
true.
And if you sell me as
So,
such, that would be wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, they're like, it's not the identical thing that the brand indicates it to be, so it's misbranded. And they didn't have an issue with the method of production. It was just quality, whether one is inferior to another. It was just that, basically, it's not telling people that they're using dried apples, basically. So
the whole argument seems to be because the lower courts had said it's not adulterated, meaning it's not an inferior product. It's not diluted. That's not the problem.
Or poisonous, toxic.
Or poisonous, yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you ask an average person on the street, hey, I have this product called, apple cider vinegar. How do you think that's made or whatever? They would have an idea in their head of what that process is and what it's made from. And what the Douglas Packing Company was putting forth was not that thing. It wasn't what people had in their minds. And so while they argued that, like, yeah, okay, you figured out a way to make the same thing in a different way, basically the same thing in a different way, it's still not an accurate labeling. So they were like, okay, the product is the same, but the name of it is wrong. And I think
Arrest them!
That's what I find most interesting about this. It was literally just the argument over, like, can we, a rose by any other name or whatever, like,
Yeah.
like, so.
But I did because, okay, also, I don't think we ever revealed when this case was decided.
Oh, yeah. Need that.
Yeah. So this case was decided in 1924.
That all makes sense.
Feels right. Yep.
So, yeah. So there's a whole lot of like social, I guess, context involved. So this Food and Drug Act that you guys were interpreting was the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, the passing of which, and also the Federal Meat Inspection Act, was fueled in part by Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle. So when Adam was calling it out, I was like, oh, he is too smart for his own good.
Yep.
Maybe you should be a lawyer.
That book really, really affected me in high school.
It affected everybody when it came out. It was pretty, heinous, the conditions that it was describing.
It actually made me a vegetarian for a couple of years.
Don't blame you.
That'll do it.
So this act was intended to address like food and also poisonous chemicals being used in food coloring, like lead and arsenic and mercury. And food was colored to disguise poor quality. It was also supposed to prevent worthless or toxic like medicines that, being sold as a purported cure for a disease. So I think there were some reports of like water being sold as a cure for cancer. It also concerned adulteration. So, oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the act was also, it concerned adulteration. So mixing inferior, fake, or harmful material with the real product, as well as misbranding. So using false or misleading labeling. And then there's also this concern of economic adulteration. So basically swindling people out of their money that they're paying for this. So before this point, trade guilds were historically setting up standards as a matter of commerce. So if you're a baking company, you're not going to make the big bucks by poisoning all of your customers.
Self-regulation, the cornerstone of a healthy market economy.
Yeah, so that was sort of the history of it, but it wasn't enough. So so this case that really sort of helped solidify the federal government's interest in and right to regulate foods and drugs, even though laws have actually been in place about food quality and stuff in the US since before the US existed, actually, like tracing back to the 1600s.
That's nice.
Yeah. So this case came up. There was also another case, US versus Lexington Mill and Elevator Company. That was in 1914. That was a landmark case because the company was like making flour, but they were using this treatment to whiten the flour, but also introduce poisonous substances into it.
Jesus.
So,
yummy.
Food was like a mess. It was a mess. So, in that case, the court ruled that flour, the product is not adulterated until the government could prove that the added substances were in an amount that would be harmful. So it's not enough that there's like lead in it. The issue is like how much. I don't know. I don't remember the chemical that they were using in that case, but it was bad. And then there's also drama about what constitutes misbranding. And for a while, leading up to this case here with the apples, a company was in the clear if they just created a name for a low quality product. So,
yeah, well, I was going to joke earlier. We'll just call like Appiolio, and we'll just give it a little bird mascot and call it a day.
So that's what companies were doing before this case.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be a worm mascot.
I like that better, actually. Yeah.
So
even today, there's actually a limit on the amount of cyanide that you could have in food. It's like 0.0000. Yeah, there's like a really strange. Yeah, it's
just enough
that's
cyanide.
I don't know if you guys, Nikki, you might be familiar about this, but on the internet a few months ago, everybody was all up in arms because there were reports coming out that there were traces of lead and arsenic in tampons and other feminine products. And people were freaking out and they were like, oh my God, we're all going to die. The universe hates women. And then it was like, well, but the government said we can have a little bit of lead and arsenic in our tampons.
Oh, just a little bit of lead.
It's okay.
There's like regulations and studies about, okay, it's like this much that causes consequences.
It's like it probably won't kill you.
Yeah.
But like it's still there. So
yeah.
Good to know about the cyanide too.
And then with your issue with the barium, Sarah, that actually wasn't harmful with the apple cider.
Okay.
It was traces in there, but it just traces.
It just sounds
there wasn't
scary.
any. Yeah, it just sounds
scary. I'm not a chemist. I don't know things. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a lawyer. Big words scare me,
So
what is it you say you do here exactly?
I don't know.
Interestingly enough, I did also look up just how apple juice and cider and all of that is made. Watch some interesting YouTube videos. So preservation is a thing. It's very important, especially since apples are seasonal. And there was an article I pulled up from 2021 that basically says like it's actually common practice to use concentrates in the place of fresh apples.
Oh yeah. The way they make orange juice is crazy.
Thing they do.
Like orange juice, the way that they make orange juice in a modern context, it's almost basically flavorless because of the way they have to preserve the oranges for transit and processing. So every orange juice
probably put on the label that there's preservative or whatever.
Every orange juice brand has what they call a flavor pack that's distinct and unique to their brand, and it like gives like Tropicana, for instance, like the Tropicana flavor. And that's how they're able to maintain flavor consistency across millions and millions and millions of gallons of orange juice.
Whoa,
across different crops.
This just makes me want to
like,
shop local.
I mean, go ahead and do that. I did from the local store. I have my apple cider. It's delicious. On the package, it says that there's it's not just apples, but also potassium something, which is basically a preservative. But it says that on the package. I can look at it as I'm drinking it. Also, it's pasteurized. So, can
you imagine like what McDonald's has to do to apples to keep them fresh when they've been cut and packaged for X number of days?
Yeah,
scary.
I'm scared.
Yeah,
it's like how their hamburgers like don't deteriorate over time. Yeah, they're just like indestructible forces of nature.
Yeah, that's what you want to build your body out of, right? Like you want to build your body out of
the sketchy Douglas Packing Company. Apple cider vinegar.
Yeah. You want apple ring, ersatz vinegar, and indestructible cheeseburgers, and that's the foundation of the food pyramid.
With extra barium, please.
Extra barium for the kids.
Oh yeah, do it for the kids.
Strong bones.
They love it. They love strong bones.
Wow. Well, good job, Court.
Once again, you've tricked us into learning something.
Did it.
How dare we?
So,
this educational podcast.
I mean, I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It turns out this case is like a really, when you talk about the history of food regulation in the U.S., like this is one of those cases. I mean, things have since moved on. The law has moved on. After this point, the FDA was created. And there were complaints about, so this case was like, oh, we're going to be regulating food or whatever, but there were still complaints about this finding. So, because it wasn't perfect.
Yeah. I think this case by its like the so what is maybe not so much this case by itself, but the collection of cases where the Supreme Court asserted that, yes, the federal government does have, through laws passed by Congress, the ability to do this sort of regulation that companies don't get to just do what they want, and that's, I think that's significant, because with any major piece of legislation, everyone then has to figure out what the box is that surrounds it, and what's in the box and what's outside the box. And for this one, this is a part of a repertoire of cases where the Supreme Court said, yeah, it might sound kind of fiddly, but the law is pretty clear, and we're looking at it, and we don't think you were being fully honest here and transparent, and that's what the law requires. And we've ruled before that, yes, the federal government does have the ability to hold you accountable for being honest in this particular domain, probably having to do with Congress's ability to, or the federal government's ability to regulate cross-border trade and the Commerce Clause and all that kind of stuff. So there you have it.
Sounds like honesty is the best policy.
Yeah. So because of the Sarah Court, people can know what it is that's in their food that they're consuming.
My gift to all of you.
There was I want to say it was Adam earlier, who talked about sort of like, how far does this go? And that was sort of my initial reaction.
That's my favorite question in general.
Yeah. Like at what point does a company have to print like the methodology by which, like, do the cookies I buy at the store come with the recipe?
I was going to make a joke about needing to list the hydration of all the ingredients, but I just couldn't figure out a way to make it funny. But here we are.
I think where we are now is fine. We get to
Could be
know
better.
what's in our food, but there's probably opportunities for improvement for a fully informed public about what we're putting in our bodies or what we're using to synthesize other things or whatever. But yeah, federal government has the authority and the right to take a look at what you're making, how you're making it, and determine whether or not what you call it is what it is.
Yeah. Justice.
Fair. Yeah, we don't mess around with food.
or medications or
Yeah. Anything you put in your body.
yeah.
So, but this case being in the 1920s, this is like, when they say a barrel, right? We're probably talking about like a full-on like oak barrel with like the label is probably like a stamp, right? Like that's what I
I'm
picture
picturing
in my head. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I was picturing like huge like wooden barrels.
It's going to
like,
take them a long time to drink
hotcakes.
all that cider vinegar.
That's so
They're going to
much
be
vinegar.
so nauseous.
It's a lot.
Mhm.
It's good for your heart, though.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like kegs. Just everywhere.
Don't you come up from the basement till you've finished every drop, mister.
Also, you're really not supposed to be drinking apple cider vinegar like that.
Well, that's maybe you should have thought of that before you broke the law.
This is going to suck for me and what I've been told I now have to do.
Right?
Maybe
This-
you shouldn't
for
have
losing
lied.
the case.
This hurts the court way more than it hurts you, presumably.
Enjoy your barium.
All right. Well, this was a bit of a quicker one, but I thought it was going to be, and then the deliberations.
Which were so entertaining. I loved it.
Hey, at least we stayed on task.
Yeah,
I
there's
do
probably
appreciate
5 minutes
that,
in the
yeah.
middle of there you can find a cut.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, this was great. I appreciate it, as always. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, justices. We have our ruling, and I can't wait to get into it again next week.
Indeed.
Happy to help.
What other barrels of things might come across our desks in the next episodes?
That depends
we shall
on how
see.
nosy the police get.
Yeah.
True. We're itching.
Barrels of things. I don't know that. I don't think we have barrels of things come. Well, not next week.
Other vessels of things will do too.
We'll
Bags,
we'll take it under
shipping
advisement.
containers.
Coffins full of Transylvanian soil.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Envelopes full of illegal lottery tickets.
Right. CIA versus Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Cool. All right. I think
You should
that's
cut us off.
Yes, I think that's the level of unhingedness that I need to say, I think we're good.
Indeed.
But thanks, everybody. We'll catch you at the next one.
Thank you.
Toodles.
See ya.
Yeah.
And there you have it. A unanimous decision in favor of the United States from our justices. This ruling aligns exactly with the real Supreme Court, which also ruled 9-0 in favor of the United States. That's it for this episode, but before we go, thanks again to my co-host and to our justices. The music in this episode was written by studio columna and Toby Smith and provided by Pixabay. Audio mixing and producing was done by me. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and comment so other people can find us. You can also catch us on YouTube and Instagram at Relitigated Podcast. We really do need help in spreading the word and would really appreciate any assistance you'd care to give us. All right, until next time, I'm Jarrett, and this has been Relitigated. Take care.